Hello everybody, my name is Happy and I'd like to welcome you all to my History Reaction channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Bismarck by Sabaton. I know a lot of you have been waiting for me to cover this one, and I have to admit that if I had had my choice as a first Sabaton video to do after I first was introduced to them, it probably would have been this one. Well, after the Christmas Truce, which is the first one I did. Because, first of all, I've always been fascinated by the story of the Bismarck, but I think it would have been kind of a nice bookend, because I first learned about the Bismarck from a song. Growing up in the late 60s, early 70s, I was a fairly sick kid, so I was constantly listening to music. My parents were very much into the 50s and 60s and early 70s, country, rockabilly, and rock and roll, especially the 50s and 60s. Down in our basement, we had an old wet bar with a jukebox that played the old vinyl singles, multicolored lights, the gold-veined mirrors, a black velvet painting of Elvis, you name it. It was a perfect 70s bar. But on that jukebox, we had a bunch of recordings by various artists of various genres, but there were a few of them that were a country and rockabilly artist named Johnny Horton, who, like Sabaton, tended to favor songs of a historical nature. He did songs like the Battle of New Orleans, Comanche, about the horse that survived the Battle of Little Bighorn, Jim Bridger, the Mountain Man, and Sings to the Bismarck, which is where I first heard of the Bismarck, where I first learned what it was, what went down between the Bismarck and the Hood, and then the sinking of the Bismarck. So my introduction to Bismarck was through music. So I see this as a natural extension of that. Let's see what Sabaton can teach us about Bismarck. No idea what to expect, by the way. This is modern. Interesting.
On that German battleship, which blew up the mighty battle cruiser Hood.
Right. The Hood was was at the time the pride of the British fleet. It was a pre-dreadnought. It was built, I believe, right before the turn of the century, like 1890s, leading up to 1900, somewhere in that window. Just before the dreadnought period, anyway, of World War I. And it was a storied ship. It was a flagship of the British Navy. It was a well-known ship. It goes up against the Bismarck and it loses. And that is going to kick the hornet's nest in Britain. But I don't know where Sabaton's going with this, so I'm not going to say more for now.
So, did you find the boat?
Okay. So, yeah, Robert Ballard, the same Robert Ballard that found the Titanic, also found the wreckage of the Bismarck. So apparently we're kind of we're referring to the discovery of the Bismarck. Cool. I see where we are now. A compass with coordinates on it. awesome. I love it. All right, brilliant opening. I love the image of the Bismarck emerging from the fog. That is iconic. That was brilliantly done. Whoever thought of that, kudos. That really helped set the stage for what the Bismarck would have been perceived and seen as. It really was the terror of the seas. It was a massive battleship. They say the king of the seas, but we have to remember the Bismarck was one of 2 Bismarck-class battleships of the period. It had a sister ship, the Tirpitz, and they were created for similar purposes. The Bismarck was intended to disrupt shipping to England, to and from England, in the North Atlantic, or in the Atlantic anyway. And the Tirpitz was intended to operate in the Baltic for similar purposes, but preventing shipping to and from the Soviets. So let's not forget there was also another one of these ships out there, the Tirpitz. And we'll talk more about that later, because I doubt this video will even mention it. Most that talk about the Bismarck don't, because the Bismarck is by far and away more iconic, in part because of what happened. But yeah, they talk about the Kriegsmarine. Yeah, brilliant star. I love that they include the Kriegsmarine as part of it, because the Kriegsmarine, of course, is who's responsible for building the Bismarck.
2,050,000 tons of steel set the course for the Atlantic with the Allies on the hill. Firepower, firefight. Battle stations keep the targets steady in sight. Into formation, the hunt has begun. Death and damnation. The fleet is coming. He was made to rule the waves across the 7 seas. To lead the war machine, to rule the waves and lead the Kriegsmarine. The terror of the seas, the Bismarck and the Kriegsmarine.
Okay, we're going to stop here. So it looks like they're talking about the sinking of the Bismarck specifically. So this is the end of the Bismarck. So let's talk about what leads to this. So the Bismarck is heading out to open sea to do what it was intended for, to disrupt shipping. It wasn't just that the Bismarck was big, it was also a very fast vessel. And that is relevant to the story of the Bismarck, because when it heads out to open sea, it encounters 2 ships, the Hood and the Prince of Wales. Now, the Bismarck itself is also being escorted by the Prince Eugene. So you have a 2-on-2 battle, basically. And what ends up happening is, we don't know if it's an intentional or an error, but the Hood starts firing on the Prince Eugene instead of the Bismarck, which was obviously the bigger threat. We don't know if it was a mistake or if it was intentional, but and the Prince of Wales, of course, goes straight after the Bismarck. What ends up happening is the Hood gets sunk. It is the pride of the British Navy. It is their most iconic ship at this time. So its loss is not polarizing, but why did I want to say polarizing? galvanizing. When the hood is sunk, the British Navy basically puts every ship at their disposal that's not already engaged in something else vital on the hunt for this German battleship, the Bismarck. During the fight with the Hood, the Bismarck was damaged. It took at least, I think, 3 serious hits. Nothing that was going to sink it, but it did need to get back to port to do some repairs. So it was on its way. It was trying to get back to Norway. And it knew that the Bismarck knew that Britain was going to be sending everything they had to find them and prevent them from getting back to safety and repairs. So now you have a chase going on in the Atlantic. One of the fastest ships out there is trying to make a run back for Norway. The Prince of Wales does survive the fight, even though the Hood doesn't. So yeah, on the way back, the British are just absolutely on a major hunt for this ship. And they do finally encounter it, which is what we see going on here. An aircraft carrier, and I can't remember the name. I think it was the Ark something. I'm not 100% sure on that. Some aircraft from that end up dropping a torpedo that hits the Bismarck, that eventually going to lead to the Bismarck defeat. It's not what really normally would be considered a serious hit. It would kind of, in fact, I think if you watch the video, in fact, let's go back just a bit. Yeah. You see that pilot? Yeah, right here. Yeah, so you see it hits the backside of the Bismarck. You see the pilot kind of, I don't know if that's is that a yes? I can't tell. But what ended up happening is it shouldn't have been a too serious hit, but it ended up jamming the rudder. So the Bismarck was stuck in a permanent turn. So now they were committed just making a big arc through the ocean, kind of a big circular pattern. And that made them basically a sitting duck. Now the rest of the forces could converge on them. So when we talk about the final battle of the Bismarck, it was the Bismarck versus well over, I believe, 20 British vessels. I mean, it was a very one-sided fight. But the Bismarck was a very dangerous ship, so it needed to be. Let's continue. Yeah, they obviously know they're in serious trouble now. Looks like he's marking down his coordinates. I would not want to have the Bismarck's guns pointed at me. Exactly.
At the bottom of the ocean, the depths of the abyss, they are bound by iron and blood. The flagship of the Navy, the terror on the seas, his guns have gone silent at last.
Hey, now I have a question. Did that compass actually exist? Because I'm not sure how Ballard actually found the Bismarck. So now I'm curious. I'm going to have to look into that after this. One little clarification I want to make, and it's not so much a clarification as it is nuance. The way they kind of portray this, it looks like the British are completely sinking the Bismarck. And of course, they are responsible for the sinking of the Bismarck. But the Germans, when they realized it was all over and done, scuttled the Bismarck to make sure that it couldn't be saved or salvaged by the enemy. So it was scuttled by the Germans. So the final destruction was by the crew themselves. So I just think I need to add that in there just for a little extra context. So yeah, great piece. If there's anything else after, sometimes there is. War knows no nation. Very true. This video is dedicated to those who fought to the bitter end in the Battle of the Atlantic. Yeah, war knows no nations. War never changes. Yeah, it doesn't. War is no respecter of nations. There's no respecter of boundaries. Throughout history, it can occur anytime, anywhere, for pretty much any reason. And it can spread out like a plague from where it starts very easily in some cases. Yeah. Great representation of the Bismarck. I would have liked to see the Battle of the Hood and as well, but I understand why it's not there. They're focusing on a different aspect, and that's cool. Certainly the sinking of the Hood is important, but I'd like to know why, how we got to that point. But we already have another song that gets us there. The aforementioned Johnny Horton song, Think to Bismarck. If you haven't heard that one, check it out if you're not a musical snob. You might find it interesting to look at somebody else who likes to do different interpretation to history music. It's actually kind of a march, so it's got this military feel to it. One last thing, since we already brought it up, let's talk about the Tirpitz. As I said, it was a Baltic sister ship of the Bismarck. If I remember correctly, and again, this is something that's not talked about as much, so I don't know as much about it, but I believe the Tirpitz was sunk. It was initially attacked by British, I think it's a fleet of 6 British mini-subs that kind of damaged it, and then it was brought down by aerial assault. So it was also sunk. We just never really hear about it because it didn't have the same level of infamy as the Bismarck, at least among the British and their immediate allies, the French and the Americans, for example. Because the Bismarck sinking the Hood made it iconic. The greatest ship in the British Navy was sunk by this monster. Therefore, it's worthy of note. Anyway, great video, great song. I really actually enjoyed that one. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for putting me on to Sabaton, and we will be back. I'm probably going to start doing Sabaton pretty regularly on Thursdays, at least for a while. I'm not going to do it every Thursday until we get through the entire catalog, but I will do it pretty regularly, and I will keep going on it until we do get through the entire catalog. And I'm not going to guarantee I'm going to do every version of every song, but I think I'll try to get every song that they've done on a history-related songs anyway. At least one of the various versions, whether it be the official video like this one, or an animated one like we did with what was it? No Bullets Fly, and or a live version or whatever. We'll do one version. If you guys want to see a different version, let me know. We'll circle back to it eventually. Yeah, and what I'll probably do is, because I'm getting so many requests for so many different Sabaton songs, I'll probably just go to their channel, list out their videos, and sort them by popularity, and just work down the list that way. That's just going to make it easier for me to keep it all straight in my head. And again, just one version of each until we get down to the end. So, again, thank you all. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.